Good evening, and we're live. And I'm here with Lissette Carter of the um, the Rookie American
hmm
podcast, and
hmm
I'll let you introduce yourself.
My name is Lissette Carter, like Carlos had mentioned. I have a show on Right America Media called The Rookie Rican. It used to be actually still operated as a podcast, even though it's broadcasted now. I'm on season 5, technically. And I also am the founder of Rookie Revival, where I teach people really how not to be lukewarm Christians in this political climate. I teach them history, government, politics. I'm an author. I have 3 books
Wow.
under that banner. Yep, I have Rookie Mommy, Rookie Wifey, and Rookie American. So I wanted to cover um, family, marriage, and nation,
Mhm.
because really revival starts at home. And that's what I do. That's who I am.
Well, it's interesting because but since you're in, since that's what your focus is there,
Mhm.
did you recently hear about the whole the what was it the Congress of religions or something where they met together and it's being called like people are dubbing it like Krista Islam or something like that. It's like a merging of like Catholicism and Islam.
I've heard of the one that the government was trying to do. That was, I don't remember the name of it. It's from the 1984 from George Orwell, um, where it was like the Ministry of Truth. But I'm not sure if that's similar. I know that at one point they're going to be trying to either do away with religion or just try and have one religion in the world,
Yes.
which is no religion,
Yeah,
essentially.
pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
but not
actually
what you're talking about.
here. It's called here Chrislam. So it's like it's a merging. Um, so
Christianity and Muslim
yeah,
and
pretty
Islam.
much. Yeah, I
No.
saw something. I saw an article about it. I'm trying to find the article, but I can't find it right now. It was like the Pope met with like a couple of imams with a couple like other Christian sect leaders because there's like
Mm-mm.
a whole like they build like a temple to Abrahamic religions in Saudi
Mm-hmm.
Arabia or something like that. Like it's already
Mm-hmm.
built. It's not like a conspiracy theory. They'll say.
Yeah. No, I haven't heard. I mean, if the Pope does anything, and it's a little, there's so many rabbit holes that you can go down with
Oh,
Catholicism.
oh, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try not to touch on that because I got a lot of Catholic friends, and you know they'll get upset, and it's like, look, I was Catholic. I grew up Catholic. I was raised
Mhm.
Catholic. It's not like it's not something where I touch on this stuff because I want to hurt my friends and I want to hurt my family. It's just you got to research. When you do research, you see what's gone on, and it's like the
Yeah. And not only that too, it's I grew up Catholic too, and I remember when I was growing up, I would always ask my parents. I always felt like I had the Holy Spirit with me, and I would always ask my parents, like, "Why do we go to confession? Is that in the Bible?" And they'd be like, "I don't know." And I'd be like, "Okay, well, why do I need to do catechism or the stuff that they do?" And they're like, "What is that in the Bible?" They're like, "I don't know." And I'm like, why do I need algebra? Is that, useful to you? And they'd be like, I don't know, just do it. And I just kind of like lost respect for like a lot of people that just didn't know why they were doing what they were doing. And when I sat down and read the Bible for myself, I was like, wow, I mean, Jesus didn't even like religion
no.
in the New Testament. So,
But it's funny. I got in trouble because I was like I was single digits. I had to be somewhere in the single digits, and I asked a nun, where does it say that we're supposed to pray to saints?
hmm
And that got me in trouble because it's like, why are you asking that for? Just do it. It's like
right.
there,
So,
there is no biblical passage that states where you're supposed to pray to. Matter of fact, it's the total opposite. You're only supposed to pray to God.
right. Yeah. And those are things that, even though, my dad always tells me too, because he knows I converted to Christianity when I was 16. And till this day, he'll be like, he's Catholic. And I have to like ask him, like, are you sure? Like, you read the Bible, you've accepted Jesus in your heart as your Lord and Savior? Because I want to see him in heaven. And I'll mention it sometimes, and sometimes he's just like, mira, mi religión se respeta, like also known as shut up.
Yes.
So, and I do, and I just say, okay, I just want to double check. And so, I'm open to talking to people about it when people ask, and when, right after 2020, I'm like, I can't BS anybody anymore. I can't tiptoe. It's just not in me to do that. So, I mean, people got to know the truth at the end of the day. And if they want to come and ask me questions, I'll be happy to answer. But it's scriptural truth. It's not like my opinion of the Bible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I remember I got into an argument with my uncle one time. And my uncle told me, he's like, because, I was quoting scripture to him, and he was surprised that I knew the Bible. And I'm like, okay, what's the surprise? And then he goes, when he was losing the argument, he goes, well, even the devil knows how to quote scripture. And I'm just there like,
well, that's true, but
it's
not
true,
something.
but it's a cop out it's a cop out when I'm there talking to him, and he's just there like he didn't like what I was saying.
Yeah.
Because he goes to a Pentecostal church. Pentecostal churches, they're supposed to dress up. And in the church I used to go to in Texas, we used to go with flip flops and football jerseys on, and it was come as you are. It's like Jesus didn't say, you had to come and be, you had to be dressed a certain way for him to welcome you. I mean, he welcomed, he walked around with one of the most hated things at the time, the tax collector. But anyway, I just wanted to touch on, I do like to talk about religion too. I mean, I went to a non-denominational church in Texas when I lived in Texas. And, that's when I found like, you could say I found a passion there for like teaching the children, because I was doing middle school. So it's something that, I miss. I don't have it here in Pennsylvania. I haven't found a church that I feel, when you go to churches, you go to different churches, you feel good going to them, but there's a difference between feeling good and, let's say, you feel like you're home. I don't know if you understand.
Where do you live in Pennsylvania?
I'm in the Poconos.
Oh, that's right. That's right. How far is that from Pittsburgh? Far, right?
Oh, yeah. Talking about like 4 hours.
Yeah. So I plug into a church in Pittsburgh from Massachusetts. And I can't find a church that's anything like it. I mean, I go online. I really don't feel like I have much of a choice, because I refuse to go to any churches that shut down out here, or that are like socialist churches or bow down to the government.
Yes.
And one of the people that I followed before then, it was a ministry called Revival Today from the Shuttlesworths, Jonathan and Adali Shuttlesworth. She's Puerto Rican. She's from here, Massachusetts. And I've seen their ministry blow up, but they are Holy Spirit and fire. Like they're amazing. So if you ever get a chance to even like check them out online, they're great.
Yes, send me the stuff. Send me the stuff. Check it. Yeah, because what also happened was, after like when the whole Black Lives Matter movement came about, like my church, the church I was at in Texas, they got woke.
Yeah.
Like, because what happened was the pastor, he's from Alabama. He's a white guy from Alabama. So, it's like he wants to show that I'm forget about being, not racist. He wants to show he's anti-racist. So, it's like, no, I have to show that I'm anti-racist, that I'm against it. And it's like, you can't, that stuff is just like, so actually me and a couple of my friends from the church, like that still live out there, they left and found other churches, because they got tired of, because they're conservatives, and they got tired of feeling like they're the bad guy.
Right. Yeah. And, it's kind of good and bad, because it really does sift, like the wheat, like it sifts the good and the bad. Like we thought that all churches were amazing before, and then when all of this started happening, it kind of people really they showed their true colors where they stood when it came to not only biblical, like basic biblical things, but also when it came to knowing their rights as pastors and as churches, and what they were willing to stand up against and what they were willing to bow down to. I mean, there's a few churches in Boston that I know that they took money so that they could have, bujita,
Yeah.
global things
Yeah.
outside of their church so people could get it, when service was over. And they took money from the government for that, and they sold out. And it's unfortunate, but it's kind of good, because then you realize who can, like, you got to really find the people who can I listen to. And thankfully I was listening to people like past, like evangelists and ministers before. They're the ones that stood, and I was happy to have followed them before. I don't know if you know of a pastor. His name is Rodney Howard Brown in Florida, in Tampa. He was the first pastor to get arrested. He's actually South African.
Oh wow.
He was arrested. He was sent here by God to America to help save America from Africa. So, which is interesting.
I interviewed Arthur Pawlowski. He's a Canadian. He's a Canadian pastor. He's the one that he went rival for calling the cops Nazis and Gestapo.
Was he arrested? Like he went away and then he came back and got arrested?
He's been arrested a couple of times.
Yeah, it's probably him.
Yeah, so I mean, I had him on. What was it? I had him on 3 days before he got arrested.
Stop.
Yeah,
really?
I had him on. It was Wednesday, and on Saturday he got arrested.
Yeah, so like I like to be in those circles. Like I want to listen to pastors like that.
Man, his testimony, because he grew up in the Soviet Union. He grew up in Poland when they were part of the Soviet Union. So he told like the story of him and his family being in line for coffee, and they had to wait like 3 days to get coffee. So like they like each take a turn waiting in the line just to get coffee.
Wow. Yeah, I gotta listen to that one. That one's probably amazing.
Yeah, it was one of the most informative interviews I've ever done, because it was just like, wow, I wasn't, I mean, I've heard stories, but it's one thing like, seeing, reading a story about someone. It's another thing you're talking to someone and they're telling you real life of what happened.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for sure.
So I mean, I'll hard segue to, because my church I used to also do this part of a Spanish church, and I wouldn't be surprised right now if they start using the term Latinx, or I don't know if you've heard. Have you seen the one that's like Latin? Is like Latine instead of the X, because they know people don't like the X, so now they're starting to put the E.
I can't with the Latinx.
I just saw that.
Good.
No, I was gonna say I just saw that today, literally today, while I was scrolling through something, and I saw that they put Latinx / Latin, and I'm like, what the really? So it's like, nobody likes the Latinx, because or what, Latinx, Latinx, however you want to say it. So they're trying to make another term, and it was like, stop it already. We don't want it. Latinos, we don't want it.
And those are things that are bred in think tanks by no offense, but the woke woke think tanks that they do, and it's just probably one of the most ridiculous. I have a bunch of TikToks that because I used to do this thing called Ridículo Headline Friday, where I would just cover a ridículo headline and just make fun of it, and whether it was true or not. And I have like 3 of them on AOC alone, just talking about Latinx, Latinx, and magazine covers. And I'm like, I don't think you guys understand the origin, like how Spanish works. You have masculine and you have feminine. Like everything is either masculine or feminine. There's no in between. There's no fluidity. Maybe with like el agua, like that was confusing. But like, you know, other than that, like they're not going to be able to do it. And I find it laughable that they're even trying.
Well, it's like I just want to bring up this article. I saw this article, and that's why I segued into the Latinx stuff, because this is ridiculous. I saw this because my niece is a swimmer. So what's funny, she used to be whole about everything when it came to like trans stuff. She was like, oh, you know, she kind of was like calling me like a bigot, and I'm like, until what happened? Until it hit her at home with the Leah Thomas stuff. And now she's like, oh, now I see what you were talking about. And it's like, yeah, it's not, you know, trans people could do whatever they want. I mean, you're an adult, but this whole thing, like, here's the article. It says here, separating sports by sex doesn't make sense. And I'm just there like, what are you people talking about? It's like, have you watched you know what it is? Because they haven't watched the WNBA game, so they really don't know what's the difference between NBA and WNBA.
Okay, so I'll say this. As a former athlete, I used to play softball for my university in Puerto Rico, in Mayagüez, and I also played soccer for the women's team in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
And before I moved, because I was born in Massachusetts and then I moved to Puerto Rico and then I came back. I moved to Puerto Rico for like 10 years. Okay. And when the year before I moved to Puerto Rico, my dad had me in softball, baseball, and soccer all in the same semester, which was illegal in my town. Not illegal, but you couldn't really do that in my town, but we managed to get in. And the baseball team I was on was a boys' baseball team. I wasn't trying to be a boy. I just wanted to like level up my game when it came to softball. So it's interesting when people talk about this because, you know, especially at a college level where you're like, I would be infuriated if dudes tried to come in and play on the softball team or the women's, soccer team. There's a reason why those things were fought for early on by like the original feminists, where we wanted equal voting rights, we wanted equal rights to drive, we wanted to have a credit card, and we wanted our own sports teams, you know, and to believe that those can be mixed is just it's not a logical thing to do. Men and women are physically wired specific ways. And, you know, men were built a different way than women are. So to think that they could even be in the same category. And I read that article, too, where they had said that you could even be in the same weight class, when it came, I think it was like to boxing or whatever. Listen, did you see the UFC fight with the girl fighting the other girl?
Fallon, yeah. You know what's the messed up thing? When she first fought as a woman, and I'm delayed, so you can't see me doing quotation marks. When she first fought as a woman, the woman fighting her didn't know that she was a man.
So, okay. So, see, I feel like that would be very important information that you would need to know before going into a fight, like what you're up against. It's, and when you're fighting at that level or when you're competing at that level, you're studying your opponent. You know what I mean? Like you go into tapes and you study how they're fighting. You study their background. You study their style. Like when I played softball, we studied the other team, how they hit, how they pitch. You studied the surrounding, the ground, everything.
Yeah, of course. I played football, so I know the same thing. It's like I played college football, so you would scout you get scouting reports on what the other team would do, the tendencies, It just so happened, like I remember one time for me, I was really good at doing a spin move. So they told me at practice, the other team's running back was good at the spin move. So they told me, hey, do it as much as you want in practice.
Right.
and in practice, I made the defense look bad. Come game
Yeah.
time, they were prepared. They did a great job. And
Right.
but you got to know those tendencies. So I mean, for a woman fighting a person who transitioned to a woman, a man who's transitioning to a woman, he was 30 years as a man before, like, 2 years as a woman. He has the physical advantage of skeletal structure, muscle
Right.
fibers. I mean, what is it? He broke a woman's skull
Yeah.
and like
No, I
broke
can't
the
even.
broke the orbital bone.
Yeah, I think to think that this is even to think that this is even feasible to do, everything all together is not. It's just the things that these people think of is like, how are you that extreme to think of something like that when it's not fair physically, and it's very dangerous on top of that, like with the locker room situation with the swim team, with what you had just
Yeah.
mentioned. It's extremely dangerous to do that, and and that's just a leftist tactic right now on the socialist agenda. One of the things is just to distort the genders and to create confusion. And at the end of the day, that's what the devil's about anyway. He wants to create chaos and
Well, that's
confusion,
what
and that.
communism. It's like
Yeah.
last week when I had Melinda on, I introduced her to the concept of the four olds. I always bring
What's
that
that?
up when because a lot of people who talk about socialism and communism and Marxism, they don't know. It's called the
It is.
four olds. It's what it was part of the Cultural Revolution of
Hmm.
China when they went to communism, and it was getting the four olds. It was getting rid of the four olds: old ideas, old culture, old customs, and forget the other one. But yeah, that's the whole. What's going on right now is they're trying to do a cultural revolution
Yeah,
here in America,
100%. Hmm.
and
And
that's.
mhm.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh no, I was just going to say, but that's what's going on. They're they're trying to change. That's why they're trying to make sex. Make it unisex, make everybody a sexless society, so to speak. That's why they want to go cashless. That's why
Hmm.
they want to do a digital uh, currency, so like that they could track everything you buy. Because if they do
Hmm.
digital currency, then they're trying to eliminate a black market. Because with cash, you can't you can't what's the word I'm saying? You can't get every transaction.
Right.
There's, you could go, hey, sell me, let's say, sell me your gun. I'm fine. I'll give you cash for it, as long as you're not a felon and you're selling them. You're not breaking the law. But now, if
Mm.
all we have is digital currency, then they're going to be like, oh, why are you selling your neighbor a gun?
Right, and it's all. I've had this on some of the last posts, where I list off the socialist, like their gameplay that they're doing, their playbook, and this is going towards. And a lot of people, I got a lot of crap for this. I got an article wrote up about me on in the paper about this,
Really?
where I went somewhere to talk at a rally. I spoke at a rally, and I did like I made a partnership with God, and I said, God, if you give me a platform, I will do altar call at every rally that I do, because the pastors weren't doing it. And I had mentioned at one of the rallies, like, listen, like we're not in the last days right now. We're in the last hour. See how quickly everything moved. Whereas to now, I just saw a report on California. They're starting to do cashless in their stores, where they don't accept cash at all. And so we're going towards a one world government, which is also includes a one world religion, one world currency. There's a whole playbook by, the World Economic Forum,
The Great
on all of
Reset.
it.
The
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
all there, and it's all available information
yeah.
that you can just simply Google. And so, we're all getting there. And so that's why my goal is to not necessarily, like, my husband is more involved with our town, like the politics, because he wants to start on a community level.
hmm
But I'm more of like, I'm spreading the gospel, and I'm getting as many people to heaven as possible, because this stuff is Bible prophecy. You can't stop it. We can delay it, but at the end of the day, we have to open up and educate people and say, listen, do you see all what's happening? I know you're scared. There is hope. And you don't have to live every day scared, because that's what the devil wants anyway. So, we have to take authority over the devil. We have to open our eyes to what's happening. We have to educate our children on prepare them on what's about to happen, what's going on. And just do what we're supposed to do. That's literally like my only thing. I'm like, no me queda más remedio. I'm spreading the gospel. I have to get more people to heaven, because I don't want Jesus to come to me when I get there and be like, why didn't you tell them? Why didn't you tell these people? You knew what was happening.
Yeah, it's creepy. It's like the whole RFID chip that they put in the size of a grain of rice, that they're saying that they could put on the back of your hand, and your own electrical your body's electrical field will power it. And it's like,
So
that's the mark of the beast.
No, the mark of the beast scripturally is a number on your forehead or on your right hand.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying.
It's the preparation for the mark of the beast, but it's not. It's visible. Like, you will literally have, or I think it's on the back of your neck, the forehead, and your right hand in Revelation. So, like, a lot of people thought the vaccination was the mark of the beast.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't know.
It was it was definitely the structure. Like, they were setting it up. They're setting it up for that to happen. But yeah, so when you're looking at like end time Bible prophecy, you really have to search the scripture and say, what is that really, like, literally? And it says what it is. The chips is just the beginning, for you to, be able to buy anything, but it's really, it has a number.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, as I was saying, I mean, it being there, and it, them being able to control what you could buy and sell by, something that they're putting on your hand. I mean, it's eerily too close for comfort.
Yeah, but you know what? And I say this to many people where, I have friends, they're like, let's go buy acres and acres of property in Florida. Let's go get chickens and, have a commune. And as much as I try and do that anyway, like, I try to make my own bread and I try to grow my own vegetables and stuff, which is like the basic things we should learn in society anyway. As much as we'd like to do that, we know, especially as Christians, that Jesus is coming back. And instead of living in fear that all of this stuff is happening and being stressed and having anxiety, we should be rejoicing that, look, these are the end times. We're literally living in history right now. We're living in Bible prophecy. Let's get excited that we're about to meet. We're about to meet the dude that created the world. We're about to, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just a different perspective.
I have a friend of mine that's, she freaks out about it. Like, she's just an overthinker. And I tell her, I said, she's like, we're in end times. And I'm like, look, listen, whether we are or we're not, we don't know. We don't know for sure, because it says that we won't be able to know. We could see the signs, but we won't know until it happens.
Yeah, it says that. So it says that the end times will be like birth pains. So, like, for example, when when you have a kid, your wife's contractions get closer and closer and closer. So when you look at data, like the stuff that's happening, the signs of the world are like earthquakes and hurricanes and eruptions. All of that stuff in the last 5 years have increased significantly. The numbers have like doubled and tripled in the last few years when it comes to like natural disasters, which is what the Bible had talked about. So we don't know the day and the time that Jesus is coming back, but we know with what is going on in the world that they're putting the framework in for the end. That we're at the end at this point, where I believe that we're in the last hour, where all they're implementing all this stuff with the one world government. They're not shy about it. And the birth pains are there. And, if you look at the records of, like, I have the numbers, I just don't know where, but, the numbers of like Bible prophecy of like everything that's happening in earth has accelerated, to a point where it's the same description as the birth pains.
I wish I would have been able to have a friend of mine on, she's a she's a teacher. Well, she's a teacher, and she has tremendous like spiritual like Holy Spirit type of discernment that she's like she talks about stuff and you listen because um she's just really in tune with the Holy Spirit. Like she wrote something about um something with Biden and like a bunch of her friends that attacked her, and she's like, look, you guys could attack me all you want. It's like I'm not telling you, you know, who to vote for. I'm not telling you none of this stuff. I'm just telling you what I see, what's going on. You know,
Mhm.
transgender stuff, the abortion
Mhm.
stuff, all this stuff that you see that's going on. It it's disgusting what's going on and the way they're confusing people and
Mhm.
making people think what's rights and um, as opposed to some stuff like abortion. It's not a right.
Mhm.
You do
Right. Mhm.
it's something that you're doing an action that's killing something. Like they'll be like, when it comes to gun control, they'll be like, if it only saves one life, let me grab your gun. But the irony is when it comes to abortion, it's like you're taking a life, whether you want to see it or not. You're taking a
Right.
life. And but in one topic, you're talking about if it saves one life, but in the other one, you're like, I don't care.
Right, and these are issues that are rooted in the education system that has been in the education system for many many years. When socialism infiltrated the United States, that was one of the ways that they were able to do was get into medical school, seminaries, which is how you have socialist churches,
Oh yeah.
um, government, and then ultimately public schools. And the public school system has had this mentality ever since they removed God from schools in the 1960s. When public school originally was supposed to be, it was created in Massachusetts to teach kids the Bible so that they can avoid having tyrannical socialist policies in the future in the government. And so, when they took God out in the 60s, that's when kind of it all went downhill, and they implemented all of these ideologies. And it's difficult because we've seen this firsthand where you kids come home from school, and they're writing papers on abortion and the right to choose, and they're writing papers on white privilege, and you're like,
Oh
where are
yeah.
you guys? I don't understand where that's coming from. Like, why are you learning that in English class? Shouldn't you be learning how to structure a sentence properly? And you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
these are things that are in the schools, and they learn it there, and they've managed to turn the parents, because the parents stop paying attention, they've managed to turn the kids from the parents, where they say, hey, don't listen to your parents, this is a safe space here. And it's a detriment, and there's no way we can actually change our school systems now. At this point, we have to remove the kids completely
Yeah.
from the schools, and so that the schools lose their funding, or start our own schools, and make
Well,
them all private or homeschool.
that's why you have like in some states you have the school choice where you could send your
Hmm.
kids to the public school or you could take your tax your voucher, your education voucher, and go to a private school
Hmm.
or go to a
Yeah.
charter school or something like that. Because I think the biggest mistake that the right did was the right seated culture and education and all that stuff to the left. That's what happened in the
Yeah.
60s. It was like, all these people cared about, business and making money and lost out. That's why we have like two, three generation of people who were, it's instilled to them that, socialism and Marxism works. It's funny.
Right.
I have a friend. He's like, "Well, the reason you say socialism and communism doesn't work is because we're in America and they don't want us to have socialism in America." And I'm like, "Dude, we've we've fostered in the education system, especially in high academia, in colleges and universities, this the whole Marxist, um, the new Marxism has
Hmm.
sprouted and grown from the 60s all the way till now. It's
Hmm.
still there. You can't
Yeah.
find. if you can't even find like one conservative in colleges, in some colleges anymore.
Right.
Find someone who's even votes remotely Republican. It doesn't happen.
Even in Puerto Rico too. I saw it firsthand out there. I didn't know it then, but I know it now. Where in the mural in the University of Puerto Rico in Mayagüez, they had a whole mural of Che Guevara, like a whole mural right in front of the university.
Wow.
And so they and over there, they cultivated more students to be independita, so that they can separate themselves from the United States and essentially become like Cuba.
Yeah.
And and they hate the United States. And what's interesting is they hate the United States. What they should say is they hate the United States government, but the original intention for America is religious freedom. And so, they also have the fake narrative of Christopher Columbus. They have these narratives that they've been able to cultivate, not so much over there in high school, but definitely in the universities over there. It's all over.
And I think like Maria, I think has maybe accelerated it, because like a lot of the conservative Puerto Ricans and like professional Puerto Ricans, after Maria, they were done. They left the island. So you have like teachers, doctors, paraprofessionals, all these people left the island that and I've met some of them, because a lot of them moved to where I was living in Texas. I can remember my son's speech therapist was, she was there. We were talking one time, and she was just there like, things have gotten so bad there on the island. I live in a gated community. She lived in a gated community in Puerto Rico, and there was still, robberies going on in her community. And she's like, I'm sick of it. Why am I paying all this money when I can't feel safe in my own neighborhood?
Yeah, and Puerto Rico is a different story altogether, because I would have stayed there if I could have grown, in my career and what I was doing, but there was no way for me to do that. And on top of that, everything is crazy expensive there, because of the Jones Act. Everything that gets imported to Puerto Rico has to come through the United States first. No other country can do business with PR. So, I mean, there's a good and bad when it comes to Puerto Rico. The good is that you're an American citizen and you can travel to and fro as you please. You can vote in the primaries, which unfortunately you can't vote in the main election. But 40% of the island is on government assistance, federal assistance. And so federal as in the US. And so, you see the dependency there. There was a very big, there is a big discrepancy with US ties initially to Puerto Rico. I mean, it is very corrupt. They use the people for experimentation a lot of the time. So there is a history of corruption there.
Birth control was tested on Puerto Rican women, and it made a bunch of them sterile.
Yeah, and when you see that, from when you sit down with an independentista and you sit down with them and you understand, like, I understand where you're coming from, but your fight is with the corrupt American government, which hasn't always been that way. There was a time where America was, it was supposed to be for religious freedom, despite what the textbooks say over there about America. So, I understand where they're coming from, and when it comes to the, tying their hands.
They want to go from one corrupt government to another one joining with Cuba.
No, and you know what? Puerto Rico's government is so corrupt in itself. Like, those guys pocket money all day long.
Oh yeah,
and they have always been like that, and it's nothing new. It's just now that the FBI, surprisingly enough, is arresting people out there for the corruption when it came to Hurricane Maria. But that's something that the people need to. The people have risen, and they even got Rosselló out of there, the last governor, peacefully. I mean, they exemplified what a peaceful protest was out there. and they can do it. They just have to come together and say, let's get rid of this trash government, and let's fix it. And that's going to take a lot of time for them to do.
A lot of time, and also I remember when I went out there, and this is the funny thing that I find, like the socialists of Puerto Rico, they want to make Puerto Rico socialist.
Mm-hmm.
Most Puerto Ricans hate taxes. Like, I remember when I went to the island, they had just finished building, like, it was new, the road that goes from the tollway that goes from, like, Ponce to I think to San Juan. There's like a tollway now. It's beautiful. No, it's on the central. It goes from Ponce.
Oh,
It goes from like south to north.
In the middle? Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this was 16 years ago. So they were complaining about having to pay the tollway. And I'm like, you have a brand new road that they're paying for. They're using your tolls. Yeah. And they're like, my wife's family was like, no, you don't understand. Like, the Puerto Ricans here, they don't like taxes. They hate that they have, to pay taxes. And I'm like,
well, there's no property tax out there at all. There's no state tax there, or there's no federal tax, I think, out there, or state, one of the two.
Federal.
Excuse me. Well, no state.
Federal. Well, I mean, they got local taxes.
Yeah.
Because they're not a state, so you can't have a state tax.
Well, the thing is, too, is they get slammed with taxes when it comes to, like, if you go out to eat at a restaurant, there's like 3 different taxes on the thing, and it's very high, so it kind of evens out. Like, when I go there, I hate eating out. I go to a supermercado econo and I go get the local stuff there. I don't get anything American imported because it's like 3 times as much. And or I go to la finca and I get some food there from my parents and I cook it. Because
I go to the kioscos. That's what I like. Or you go to the side of the road. I remember one time I went to Puerto Rico with my dad, and we had acapulca de huelle, and it was on the side of the road. They had like a shack, and he had like this huge thing of oil, and he's just there making the acapulca, and I'm just there, like, me and my dad, we just did, and they were like, I mean, granted, it's like over 20 years ago, but they're like $1 each.
Yeah. So I feel for Puerto Rico because I want to move there. I want to raise my daughter there. That's where I feel like I'm more from. But I can't because, and my husband's, he's white. He's from here. He's like, we can't go there because the government is so corrupt. I was out there for the majority of 2020 with my daughter, and my husband was renovating our home, so I was out there for a good couple months. And when COVID happened, the lockdown out there was insane. We would be on the beach by ourselves, and cops would come out of nowhere on jet skis and remove us from a completely deserted beach.
Wow.
And they don't have conservative media out there, so all my parents
there is no conservative, there is no Fox News for the Latino community.
Nothing. There's nothing. Now they're rising up because George Soros bought up a lot of the media and they're leaving. But there was nothing. So I had to hear, like, every night I heard liberal media all day long, and it got into my family's head to the point where, we booked 2 trips to go to Puerto Rico this year, and I had to cancel them because they were like, don't come here si no está vacunada. They were like, for real, no joke. They'd be like, no vengas aquí, and I fought not to wear a mask in Massachusetts. Like, I would get the cops called on me. I did not care because I have a medical background. I went to nursing school. I know how this works. And so when this all started happening, I was like, this doesn't make sense. Wear a mask from Old Navy? I don't get it. Like, I took a whole year of PPE in nursing school, like, a couple of classes, and it was like, this doesn't make any sense. So for me to do that, it was like going against my conscience. And I fought for my daughter not to have to wear a mask. So, when they told us, if you're going to come back to Puerto Rico, te tienen que poner mascarilla. And I'm like, no, No.
Yeah.
It was bad over there. And some of the conservatives that I know over there, they would call me and they'd be like, what do? We can't comply with this anymore. And it's gotten to the point where the people will, I mean, they will straight up look at you and be like, que falta de respeto. It's like a lack of respect.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
you don't have your mask on out there. And
Yeah. I mean, I remember it was summer. I want to say it was like July. I was in New York visiting my parents, and me and my mom, we went to go walk to Trader Joe's, and she has her mask on, and I'm like, Ma, it's 90 degrees outside.
right.
We're walking a few blocks to go to Trader Joe's. You'll be fine. We're gonna be outside. I know, but you're supposed to wear your mask. I said, Ma, you're gonna get more sick wearing the mask that you're 70 something years old and you can't breathe in 90-degree heat than you. And she was like, I fine, Calito, I'll take it off. Because she knows she ain't gonna wish, I'm just gonna be like, you know what? Because it would have got to the point where I would like, you know what, Ma, stay here. I go to Trader Joe's by myself.
Right. Yeah. I fought with people here, and I never put a mask on my daughter ever. And people here, they would just look at me, and when I went to Subway, the first encounter that I had, like I almost got in a fight with this lady. I went with my husband to Subway, and the lady goes, "You have to be 6 feet apart," and I'm like, "Why?" And she was like, "Oh, because it's just a management thing. We can close down if you're not 6 feet apart." And I looked at the camera and I was like, I slept with him last night. I'm not gonna stand. I'm not standing 6 feet away from him. And my husband was mortified. He was like, why would you say that? And I'm like, no, this doesn't make any sense. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it. And
I have a special needs son. So, I used to
wear it.
Oh, no. I used to tell him, good luck. You want him to wear the mask? You try.
Yeah. Right.
And it was like, I got to the point they're like, forget it. Because they weren't going to win. Because you put it on, he's just there like, bloop, taking it off. Because I'm like, it's a sensory thing. I can't even, I can't, in the winter, I can't even put a face, like a regular face mask to keep him warm because it bothers him. Right. So let alone to wear a mask when it's nice outside? No. I was like, have fun. I'm telling you guys now, it's not going to happen. And it didn't.
Yeah. Wow.
It didn't. I'm like, how are you going to do that with these special needs kids? How are you going to try to enforce that? It was stupid.
Right. Yeah, they tried. They definitely tried to do it, but
oh yeah, no, there was like some kids that would keep it on, and I'm like, that's you guys. My son, no.
I don't think we'll ever go back there again. I think people have woken up enough to.
I think I told your aunt the story of what happened to my cousin in Puerto Rico, but I don't think I did it online because what happened was my cousin got kidnapped.
What?
Yeah, my cousin got kidnapped because I told you my last name, so I'll leave it at that. So because he had the same last name of the car dealership, they kidnapped him thinking he like he either owned it or his family owned it. So they kidnapped him to ransom him. And when
in Puerto Rico?
In Puerto Rico.
Was he in San Juan?
Mm-hmm.
Oh well. That explains
a
lot.
Not San Juan, Santurce.
Oh yeah.
Well, pretty much almost the same. So they kidnapped him for ransom, and when they found out that he had nothing to do with the dealership and he had no money, instead of letting him go, they killed him.
Stop. They did not.
And like my wife wants to go, like my wife is dying to go visit.
I'm so sorry. That's terrible.
And it's like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back because I'm like, I have the same last name. God forbid they, I go somewhere and they see my, they see my ID. I gotta whip out my ID, and someone tries to do that to me. It's like, no.
No, but you can still go. Just go through Aguadilla Airport. You don't go to San Juan.
Yeah. Well, actually, no. What I might do is what I was looking at is probably maybe doing like a cruise that stays in Puerto Rico for like 2 or 3 days.
But that stays in that docks in San Juan.
Oh, I know, but I don't have to sleep in a hotel in San Juan. I could just, day. I'm not going to stay in San Juan anyway. I'm going to rent a car and probably go visit my family in Aguadilla, or my wife's family that lives in Piedras. So
Mm-hmm.
do something like that where I'm not gonna. I've been to all across the island. Like when we went on a honeymoon, we drove 800 miles. We put 800 miles on a rental car in a week
In Puerto Rico?
in Puerto Rico.
Oh, wow.
Well, because I'm from the western part of the island. She's from the eastern part of the island. We've never been to the other side. So I took her to Aguadilla for the first time, and she took me to out like Ponce, and we were staying in Luquillo, and we drove the coast. It took us like
Mm-hmm.
3.5 hours. So we went from Luquillo all the way to Ponce, but driving along the coast.
Yeah, that's
It was
pretty.
beautiful, but it took 3.5 hours. But it was worth it though.
I'm really sorry to hear about your cousin. I thought you were gonna tell me a funny story, but
No, no,
not a
sorry.
funny story at all.
No, that's not.
Like, I'm sorry to hear that. Honestly, that's when I lived in Puerto Rico, I never went to San Juan. I hated going there because it was like the city, and I'm like, I don't trust the city. I don't like the city, and Aguadilla is so different. It's a surfer.
Yeah, but yeah. But I could tell you an Aguadilla story too. That with my own cousin, that we went out to a club, and he got into an argument with someone, and he went back to try to get his gun and use my father's rental car, and it was like, no, 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 no. Take me back. Take somebody else's car. If you're gonna be stupid like that, I ain't gonna be part of that shit. And cooler heads prevailed after I made him, because he literally brought the gun into the car, and I'm like, yo, bro, no, we're leaving. And
Yeah,
like,
no, you gotta be smart about if you're gonna go to Puerto Rico. You gotta be smart about where you're going. You can't go to the
well,
clubs
I was what, I was 18, 19 at the time,
you're
and it was
younger.
just,
Yeah,
I just went out
yeah,
with my older cousin thinking, oh, we're gonna have a good time, and it was like, dude, I'm like, you're the older cousin. You're the one that's supposed to be setting a good example. I shouldn't have to be the one to tell you, bro, we're not going to do a drive-by in a rental in my dad's rental car. Not going to happen. I would
yeah.
have.
No, when you're with your wife and your children, you can go be smart. Go to Aguadilla, go
Oh
to the
yeah.
airport there, maybe change your last name if you're really, and you don't have to worry about it at all. And
Yeah.
and you can go there as much as you want.
No, I'm proud of my
But
last name. That ain't going to happen.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
have.
but that's
I love that. It's like that's the reason I can't say my last name on air, is because it's a rare name. So it's not like, you could say, like, you said, like, you could say your name is Gonzalez or Rivera, and it's like, nobody's gonna find you. They're gonna, if they look up, Carlos Gomez, how many Carlos Gomez's are they gonna find?
1,000
Exactly.
at least. Yeah, that's
So,
true.
for me, it's a different story. It's like, yeah, I got to be careful with my last name being out there, because then I'm easier to find.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I don't mind my first name, because Carlos, I mean, you can't get any more Spanish than Carlos.
Yeah.
Maybe Pedro.
If I would have done this differently, with like my books and my show, I would have changed my name. Not like officially, but I would have done a, like a pen name or something, because people can find me, and I'm prepared. I have, like, I'm always armed. I'm not worried about anything.
Yeah.
But I probably would have at least changed my last name, to like a stage
Well,
name or something.
you didn't know. I mean, for me, I was like, I wanted something catchy. I didn't want my name on it. I wanted something, but I wanted something catchy. So that's how I came up with the right. Because I'm like, I don't consider myself conservative. I consider myself more like libertarian.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's certain things I'll disagree with the conservatives, but I don't. That doesn't mean I agree with the liberals.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
let's say like abortion. Let's give abortion for an example. The liberals now, the stance is up to the point of birth, abortion's okay. And the conservatives are like, no, ban it completely. And I'm just there like, look, my personal life, I wouldn't want it. But I'll make exceptions because just because I believe something doesn't mean I want to force my beliefs on other people. And that's just the libertarian. That's the libertarian side in me, not wanting to force my beliefs on someone else. But when it comes to the children, I believe I go with the conservatives, where when it comes to children, leave the kids the F alone.
Right.
That's where I'm like, no. Now we're talking a different story, because you're not gonna sexualize my 5-year-old daughter, or you're not gonna try to tell my 5-year-old daughter that she's a boy. It's not gonna happen.
Right.
She's a girl. She likes being a girl. She's girly. She tells me, Daddy, I can't wait to be a mommy. And I'm like, I could wait. You're already 5. Yeah. Calm down with that. I can't wait to be a mommy. As much as I want to be a grandfather, enjoy being a kid and enjoy, growing up. But, it's just kid stuff that, she playing with dolls and all that stuff. Daddy, look at my baby. Oh, yeah, it's so cute.
Yeah. I hear you with that, because it's tricky, because you want to respect everybody's positions, but at the same time, I feel like the reason why we got to where we are today, where it's seeped into our homes, is because of the mentality of like, to each their own. Christians specifically were like, you know what? If we're going to remove God from the schools, to each their own, to each their own, to each their own, to a point where it was supposed to be something that was this big, and we live over here and it's not going to affect us. And now it's like overtaking everything. And especially our kids. And so, it's tough, because the reason why we have the freedoms that America is a free nation is because of the Christian values, because they needed to work together, even though they were different denominations. They needed to respect the way that they all worship God differently. And when people came here from different countries, hey, we're going to respect, what you worship. We're going to respect, what you do. And you can't do that in any other nation. You can't go to.
There was also a respect. I was going to say, there was also a respect for the country. There was a love. You could have came from, Bulgaria. You could have came from Colombia, and you came here to America. And the one thing that linked you was your love for this country.
Your love for freedom. And and you respected that, and you earned your way. And, it's unfortunate that it's gotten to a point where that's lost, and they want to erase all of that. They want to erase the love for the country. They want to instill hatred into the nation, into the kids, so that they can vote a certain way at the end of the day. And that's because we've turned a blind eye to the things that were important. The original reason why we started public school and not maintain that throughout time, because of the mentality of to each their own, has you remove God.
I was just gonna say, the new one is how you said to each their own. Now it's your truth, and it's like there's no your truth. There's there's like there's 2 sides to every story, and then there's the truth. And
there's an opinion, and then there's the truth. Yeah. So it's a tactic. At the heart of socialism is to remove Christ from a nation, and they've managed to do that very well. And so, we're holding on to the last of it, and we're seeing what's going on. We know it's coming soon, and so that's why it's our responsibility to wake people up and say, wake up, this is what's happening right now. Let's talk about the stuff that really matters at this point, not the stuff that divides us.
Yeah, I think that's, perfectly said. It's like instead of focusing on everything that we disagree on, let's see what we agree on. And, let's have conversations. The conversation I had last week, it got it got a strike on it. And one of my appeals to YouTube was, I didn't say that. They accused me of election misinformation. I'm like, I didn't say that. That's not what I said. I said, you know, uh, anyway, let's just say how I won was I used the Bill Barr defense, because when Bill Barr, when he, when he came up with his, um, when he did his investigation, he said something, and I'll leave it at that because I don't want to get this one flagged either. Because even if I repeat it, and if even though I'm saying exactly what I said last week, exactly what my defense was, some algorithm may click in and go, "Oh, we're going to remove this one too." So,
yeah,
I'll tell you offline what my defense was. But yeah, so yeah, I think that's a good place to say where we need to find a way to go back to where we agree. Like you say, go back to, well, I like to say, like, I like Ben Shapiro, so he always talks about the Judeo-Christian values, and I think it's true because, I mean, where do we get, as Christians, where do we get our, our stuff from? We get it from the Old Testament. So, like the whole innocent until proven guilty is, the whole thing of Abraham when he bargains with God about Sodom and Gomorrah.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we get the whole innocent. It's better to let 10 guilty people set free than it is to have one innocent person in prison. Is because of Abraham's conversation with God when it came to Sodom and Gomorrah about, oh, what if I find one righteous person? What if I find 10 righteous people? When he bargained him down, that's the whole innocent until proven guilty stuff.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. So, anyways, I've had you on for an hour plus now. Well, actually, no, it's an hour. I like to keep it an hour because we all have our other things to do and people's attention spans. It's a pleasure having you on. Is there any? I know you have a website. I'll put your website in the description. But is there any particular way where people could, where you would like people to reach out for you, like your podcast or your website in general? Because I know your website has links to everything.
Just go straight to the website, rookierevival.com. I have all my podcast information on there. I have my subscription, my books, my merch. Everything is on there. I wanted to make sure everything was included in one place. Because if you look for me anywhere else, I'm not gonna come up. Sorry, I'm like banned all over. So, just go to rookierevival.com. Subscribe. I have about an email a week that goes out. Maybe if I feel like it goes out. I'm not really, I'm consistent, but I'm not barging you, over the head with emails every single day. But that's where I want to stay in contact with you. Something goes down, if I get banned from social media platforms, I still want you to have access to, my YouTube channel, my shows, everything. So,
well, while we're at it, I think you should sign up for Rumble because you might be.
I'm on Rumble.
Oh, you are on Rumble?
Yeah, I just have to contact them because something is wrong with the subscription that I got. So I've been like on and off Rumble, like I've been on it, and then for some reason it just doesn't pull through. So I'm on it. I just have to. It's official Lissette Carter on Rumble.
Okay. Well, you know what? We'll talk offline about that. Maybe I can help you because I'll tell you my issue with it. But all right. So thank you for everyone who was on live and anyone who's watched this on replay. Thank you for listening to us, and have a great day, everyone. And